Guys, it's a beautiful morning, nice and crisp morning out here, and winter is coming. You can feel it in the air. The leaves are turning. I was out here yesterday, dug these footings for these guys, and the task at hand is to dig and set a new Roth Fralo 1,500 gallon polyplastic septic tank here. We're gonna put risers, lids on that effluent filter, and we're gonna trench down and connect to the double leach pit setup that was installed in a previous video. So be sure to check that out. And I got a little clearing to do because I'm gonna need to trench down around to the right side of those redwood trees there. So let's get started.
I think it'd be good for me to mention that this video is gonna be geared for a beginner that is maybe just about to install their first plastic septic tank, or maybe even a fiberglass septic tank. Or maybe even a concrete tank, because there are some things that I'm going to go over in this video that would be useful for any of those applications. But specifically in this video, we are installing a Roth Fralo 1,500 gallon polyplastic septic tank. The installation procedure that I'm using is for that tank specifically, but many plastic and fiberglass tanks kind of have the same requirements. They require good bedding material and compaction under the haunch of the tank, and a few other things that I'm going to point out. 13 things, guys, so hang in there and let's see what happens.
All right, that's looking a lot better now. Got all that brush and junk out of the way. There was a lot of rocks and wood debris under all that ivy, and took down those small little plum trees. And this is my connection point down here. We built a double leach pit right out here in a previous video. So that's my connection point. I need to make sure I have gravity fall to that. And our new tank location is gonna go somewhere right out in here. So I think I'm ready to get some paint on the ground and start digging for that.
All right, guys, without any hesitation, I'm going to jump into the first 9 items out of 13 that I find to be really important to keep in mind during a tank installation project. Number 1, plans and permits. Are they required for your project? Most likely they are. And you're going to want to check with your local building department or public health department office and get that sorted out. Most of the time you can do it as an owner builder, and sometimes in certain counties it can be a lot more efficient and easier to hire a consultant to help you with the plan and permit process. Number 2, follow the plans but not blindly. If you have a set of plans, it's really best to follow them to the extent that you can. There might be errors on the plan, so you're going to want to look for that. If you know setbacks, which is a distance measured that you must keep away from something. So a setback is, how far away the side of the septic tank can be to the side of a structure, for instance. So if you know some setbacks, pay attention to that, look over the plans, see if everything looks accurate and meets the requirements that you know of. If you find something incorrect, consult with the designer or your public health department office or the building department and check in on that. Number 3, does your layout, your planned excavation, meet the setbacks? So again, knowing the setbacks is going to be really important. So if you have a cheat sheet of setbacks, that would be great. You're going to want to know how far your septic tank can be installed, maybe from a house or from the side of a driveway or from a creek or a well or a ditch. Maybe it's a concrete line ditch or a swimming pool. So there's all these different things, and they all have kind of different measurements, most of them do, that are these setbacks, and you're going to want to be aware of those and what they are. You don't want to end up installing a tank and having missed a setback, and maybe the engineer missed it, and now you're in a situation where maybe you have to remove this tank and install it somewhere else. So be really careful there. Use those setbacks, use a can of spray paint, paint out the setbacks, and you're going to create a window of opportunity, which is the area that you can work within. And that's one of the first things I like to do on a job, is create that window of opportunity. If I get all those setbacks marked out, I know that if I'm inside that zone, I'm safe to do almost anything I want. Okay, planning your dig. Don't paint yourself into a corner. Know where you will stockpile the dirt and how you plan to deliver the tank and set it in the bottom of the hole. Oftentimes after you dig a big tank hole, there's going to be big spoils of dirt. Maybe you'll use some of that dirt and spread it and build a little road or a ramp. So the dirt coming out of the hole can oftentimes be a benefit on projects, especially on a sloped hillside project, but can also be a problem too, because those piles can get big, they can want to drift down the hill, and so on and so forth. So plan your dig. Number 5, make sure the dimensions of your planned tank hole excavation will provide you with enough room to place backfill around the new tank and compact the fill material to satisfy the tank installation procedure. For example, if the tank measures 5 feet wide, you're probably going to want to dig a hole that's closer to 7 or 8 feet wide, so that it gives you enough room to get down in that hole alongside the tank with a hand tamper or a jumping jack whacker to get that material compacted. This is a big one. Number 6, know your elevations, and expose and double and triple check, quadruple check if you need to, your tie-in spots. If you're going to be connecting to an existing building drain line and you're going to be trenching out, for easy numbers, let's say you're going to be trenching out 100 feet and you're going to need to set that pipe at 2% fall. Well, 2% fall on 100 feet is 2 feet. And maybe out of the outlet of the septic tank, you need to connect to a distribution box or to a sump tank. So you're going to want to make sure that you're going to have the fall from the house to the tank, and then from that tank outlet to whatever you're going to be connecting to or going to, whether it's a leach field distribution box or a sump tank. This is very, very important. It is one of the most expensive mistakes that you can make on a project like this, because if you get these grades wrong, you get that tank set down in the hole. Maybe you go as far as to get all the bedding around it, risers on it, and you go to connect that tank and it is too low to gravity to the leach field, or maybe it's, worst case scenario, too high for the house to connect to it. Then you have to start making decisions. Are you going to put in a pump to pump the sewage from the house to the tank? Are you going to remove the tank and redo it? Are you going to maybe have to put in a sump tank to pump effluent now to a leach field where you could have just gravity to it? So pay close attention on your elevations, guys. And number 7, you're going to need to decide, or not decide, but you're going to need to determine if you're going to need shoring for your project. Septic tank holes can get pretty deep. It's usually the reaction I get from a homeowner when they come out and they see the hole that I've dug in their yard. They go, man, I didn't realize it was going to be so deep. These holes can be deep, and you have to be aware of your surroundings and the soil type, and you might even need to consult with maybe a local excavation contractor if you're not one, and try to get an understanding of what is typical in your area. You're either going to have to bench the soil back so that the hole is safe and you're not going to have that cave-in potential, or have some sort of shoring system set up so that you can get it in the hole and be in the hole safely. And so that brings us to key point number 8 to keep as a definite main priority in this whole process is leveling out the bottom of your tank hole. You really want these tanks to sit level, side to side and end to end. And I believe that good enough is at least end to end, somewhere around 1/4 of an inch. It should be within that. That's achievable. Side to side doesn't matter as much, but we're still trying to make the tanks sit level. So key point here is no, the tanks aren't supposed to be installed with slope. Okay, the tank should be installed level, and that's why you're going to want that shoring if your embankments are not very stable, because you're going to want to be able to get down in that hole and take time and get that bottom leveled out really nice. And now for key point number 9. What backfill material are you planning to use? Native or import? Check the installation manual and procedures. Many plastic and fiberglass tank manufacturers recommend like an imported 3/8 free-flowing pea gravel, or maybe a sand and gravel bedding mixture. If you're not sure, give the manufacturer a call. If you need to, send them a sieve analysis, and it's just better to be safe than sorry. So let's get back to the video and keep plugging away.
Day 2 of the tank install out here, and I'm glad I worked late last night. I was out here till 8 o'clock. In the dark coming down this hill, by the way, is not great in that Kubota skid steer. The cameras on those Kubota skid steers are terrible. Caterpillar has a much better camera system on their skid steers. Love the Kubota skid steer, just that camera's gonna have to be replaced or redone. But got the pile of gravel moved on top of the tank here, and the task today is going to be getting this bedding material worked around the tank, tamped in. We're going to put the risers on. We're going to do some trenching and get our building drain line brought up to the near the side of the building there. And we're going to trench from the outlet side here all the way down to the leach pit diversion valve. And didn't rain a lot last night, but it is definitely a little muddy out here and a little slick. So glad I stayed late last night and got that gravel down this hill, because that I would have been leaving a giant mud track all the way down the paved road through the neighborhood to where my gravel pile is. So let's get to moving some gravel around. So the first step with one of these tanks to get them installed correctly is to get your bedding around that tank. Get that bedding worked in under the haunch of the tank. And a key note here is you don't want to fill the tank with water at this point. Leave that tank empty and get this material worked around the tank and compacted. So let's keep shoveling. All right, so the most important thing if you're installing a plastic or a fiberglass tank is, first and foremost, grab the instruction manual, flip through it, and make sure that you're covering all your bases. But generally speaking, with a plastic or fiberglass tank, the very most important thing you can do is have a good backfill material, a good bedding material. The best I find is a free-flowing, clean aggregate that will have a relative compaction somewhere greater than 85 or 90% in a confined space. So we're using this 3/8 blue chip right here. It's small, it flows pretty nicely, and we've provided plenty of room for me to be in here and work this material under the haunch of the tank. I have a hand tamper. I do also have a jumping jack whacker, but without the support of a good bedding material under the haunch of the tank, the weight of the backfill on top will squish the top, especially a plastic tank will squish that top down, and you'll see your risers bowing in towards one another, and that's a pretty quick and clear sign that the tank was not installed correctly. So to install a plastic tank correctly and a fiberglass tank, get good bedding material, get good compaction under the sides of that tank, and don't go shy on labor here. It's going to be pretty labor intensive for me, but this is roughly where I like to see it. I like to see the aggregate just below the mid seam if I can. I didn't have much of an option last night. I had to get all this gravel in over the top of the tank, at least on this end, but I've been able to rake that material back and get it around the back side of the tank here, and I am ready to start tamping. The first thing I'm going to do before I tamp with a hand tamper or a jumping jack whacker is I'm going to use the butt end of this digging bar, and I'm really going to drive that material down at an angle and under the haunch of this tank. That's going to give it the best support. Once I've got that done, then I can transition to a hand tamper or the jumping jack whacker and really beat it down. Once I get this end of the tank done, because I'm kind of in a bind here with all this material, once I get this first area beat in, I will drag more of this 3/8 chip and bring it all the way around the side of the tank here and go ahead and beat that in again. I'm probably going to be left with a pretty thick layer over here, which is going to require additional labor for me to get that material worked in under the tank. But let me get started right here, and you can see as I beat this down, you're going to watch the gravel sink, and what it's doing is sinking down and filling these voids right here under the tank. And that's really what you're trying to do, is fill these voids. That's going to give this tank a lot of structural integrity and strength. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to this pointy end. I'm not going to jab the tank, though these tanks are really tough. I'm going to just, you can see the penetration, I'm going to wiggle it around. And it might be hard for you to see from there, but this material is sinking down into these voids here. Oh yeah, down it goes. And it's pretty clear for me to see that now that I've done that first step, my digging bar does not nearly get the same penetration it did initially. So I already know that we're making progress. So now I'm going to transition to the butt end, and we're just going to beat it really good. And I'm going to switch to the other side. this should be sticking in much less now. Yep. This time only 5 or 6 inches as opposed to 18 inches. And boys, that's a workout right there.
Well, that pretty much covered key item number 10, which is work that bedding material under the haunch of the tank and compact it in lifts. But again, still check the installation procedures for the specific tank you purchased.
What do you think about that? So the manufacturer asks that the backfill material on either side be compacted first. That's a key point here, is you want to compact down the sides before you compact anything on either end. And the basic idea of what we're trying to do with the backfill and compaction here is we want to push in on either side and almost kind of bow up the top of the tank a little bit. We're pushing in the sides, and that is going to prevent the top of the tank from squishing down, filling the voids on the ribs of the tank and packing this material in really tight. That's going to prevent this tank from any future collapse. So that's key. Once you get your side backfill tamped in, then you can work on tamping in either end. And in your lifts, you're always going to want to compact the side material first, then your end material. So side material compaction, then end material compaction. And when you get up to the top of the tank, the manufacturer wants to see that you compact the native soil backfill between the risers first, and then you can start backfilling around the ends of the risers and ends of the tank. So this is all looking pretty good. It is ready for a little bit of compaction on either end here, so I'm going to get to doing that. Then I'm going to clean off the top of the tank and maybe drill the inlet and outlet and get some risers installed. Well, my personal opinion, I think digging and setting the tank's the easy part, and what you just saw, that's the hard part. Getting the gravel in and around that tank and packing it in really good. That's going to be a pretty good workout for whoever's in charge of that task. But anyways, I just pulled these lids off and got them sitting over here. We're not going to use those. We're going to be installing the Orenco risers, which you see way up over there. We're going to be putting on some Orenco riser adapters. So when you get this tank, inside of it is going to be your bag of goodies. Inside there is going to be a couple sanitary tees and the rubber grommets that come with the tank. I prefer to use the Orenco rubber grommets. I've found to have a lot better success rate in terms of getting the tanks to be watertight and the grommets to be sealing up better using Orenco grommets. So I'm going to reach in here with the pick and get that bag out, and I'll show you what's inside. So instructions right here. I've installed these so many times I don't need to read them again. Read them many times. And here's the rubber grommets that come with the tank, and they can work okay. They are a bit stubborn to get a good seal, and like I said, I like to use the Orenco grommets, and it doesn't cost that much more. You'll have to excuse my shirt. My other shirt got drenched in the compaction effort, so I had an extra shirt in my truck. But that's going to be my inlet sanitary tee I'm going to use. Now these Fralo tanks come with this tee as well. I prefer not to use this tee. We're going to use an effluent filter, which I brought for the outlet side. And here in California, we're going to be drilling the A hole. There's two holes marked out on this tank. There's an A hole and a B hole. Here in California, at least in Sonoma County where I'm at, we're drilling out the A hole. So that's what we're going to be using. And now that I got this stuff out of here, I think what I'm going to jump to is hopping on that excavator and digging these trenches. Once I get these trenches dug for the inlet side and outlet side, all I'll have left to do is just install the pipe and the risers, and I'll be ready.
All right, moving on to key point number 11. If you are going to install risers, consider your finished grade elevation before procurement of the riser material. It is ideal for the risers to extend above grade by 1 or 2 inches, and for the finished grade to be sloped away from the tank and risers, ideally. It's not going to happen in every scenario. There's lots of tanks installed where the ground is just flat everywhere around the tank, right? But I think that you're really going to want to avoid the tank from being in a low spot, because you're going to tend to have a puddle form right there, and that puddle could just be seeping into the ground or into the top of the riser lid and right down into your tank. So it's also very important to make sure your riser material is designed to fit with the tank that you have purchased. It is ideal to have a riser that will seal tightly to the top of the tank so that any potential groundwater will not infiltrate into the tank. If you have a septic leach field, it is likely to fail prematurely if it is being dosed with excessive amounts of groundwater. The worst cases I see is when there's maybe a leach field up on a hill, not in the groundwater, but the tank and sump is down in a low area, and the tanks become infiltrated with groundwater during the winter months, and the whole system is basically pumping thousands and thousands of gallons up into a leach field. That's obviously not designed for that, and what that essentially is doing is it's cycling way more water through the tanks and up into your leach field, and that's carrying a lot of solid matter, the very small particles that your septic tank is supposed to settle out don't have time to settle, and so it's just passing through and getting pumped up to your leach field. So you're going to get premature failure, so a shortened lifespan, and you are certainly could just end up with failure due to oversaturation. So try to get some watertight risers installed on your tank. That would be my recommendation for a long-lasting septic system.
Just gotta make a few last connections here. Clean these burrs off the pipe. Clean the pipe up a little bit because I'm gonna be shoving this guy through the 4-inch rubber grommet there. And just in case you're wondering, that was a 5-inch hole saw bit. Drilled straight through. I didn't work it around at different angles. I just drill that 5-inch hole saw bit straight through, and this grommet will fit in there snug. And once this pipe pushes through, it's going to make a good seal. Dry that off. I was able to dig that trench going up the hill at a little over a 22.5 degree slope. So I'm going to glue on this pipe extension over to a 22 degree elbow that I have here. Should work good. Just gonna get this guy well lubed up. It's a little chilly this morning, so it's gonna require a good push. Let's see here. All right, come on now. Really helps to have as much room as you can to wobble it around back and forth. And sometimes it requires a digging bar. But you want to make sure you don't get your gasket shoved into the tank. But yeah, I'm struggling a little bit this morning. So we're gonna have to use the digging bar. So the bottom lip of that grommet pushed in a little bit, but I was able to wiggle the pipe around and it recovered. It came back out. So you don't want these lips to push in, or else it'll be a leaker. And we don't want leakers. And I'm going to make this 22 degree connection right here. Boom, just like that. Okay, looking good. That's what we're looking for. Just the tip of that pipe to be, it could have been a little bit shorter. I could even still push that back that way. But what we're looking for is to be able to have this tee in here, basically where you can just see straight down through the top of the tee. So we want to look down right through the top of the tee, and so that pipe could get shoved back a little bit further. So our pipe coming in has plenty of fall there. I'm using some transition glue to get this sanitary tee glued on here. How's that look from there? Unfortunately, I don't have a torpedo level today. I just got this guy and can't catch the edge of that, but sometimes you got to do it by eye. This is not a make or break situation, guys, but always good to try to make things as straight and plumb and everything as you can. Okay, inlet, outlet, tee, baffle tees are on. This is a filter cartridge, obviously. There's a filter right there. Next step for me, dry off the surface really good on both sides, and we're gonna lay down the butyl mastic strips that stick to this, and I'll show you how we put on these Orenco riser adapters. Alright, so here's the adapter kit. This is the Orenco Roth tank adapter kit, so that you can use Orenco risers with these Roth Fralo tanks. Comes with a bag of 8 bolts. It's a little chilly this morning. She doesn't want to stick super good. So it kind of helps to really kind of knead the bead here. Use your thumbs and just really kind of squish it down on here. And I give it a little tug. Makes it a little stickier that way. And the instructions for this actually suggest that you lay this material on this lower edge here. I have personally found over the years of installing these that I get a better seal by putting this on the upper edge, directly in line with the bolt holes on the adapter, and I drill through this butyl mastic down into the plastic part of the tank, and I get a much better seal, as opposed to this material being over here and drilling through the outside. If you accidentally strip out a screw, you're going to have a leak right there. Whereas if you're drilling through this butyl mastic and you were to accidentally over tighten a screw, which you really don't want to do, that will really help avoid a leak from happening there. So get all this all the way off and butt it up in there. Get these two edges butted up nicely. And I'm just kneading and pushing down my thumbs. See, this part came over here, kind of peeled off a little bit. So gotta keep an eye on that before you set the ring down. Really make sure you got this thing right where you want it. taking plenty of time to kind of push on this and try to really get it stuck to that surface. Okay. Okay, we're gonna do a little test fit. This is kind of a critical part. You really want to get this thing kind of really centered here as good as you can. The most important thing I'm thinking about right now to make sure I get this watertight is I do not want my screw to go through any of these holes and be on the inside of the butyl mastic. I want to make sure that when my screw goes through, I'm going into the butyl mastic. So in some of these spots, I'm shoving this butyl mastic in a little bit just to make sure it's right below the hole in the adapter. So I have not pre-drilled. I find that it's better to put pressure, a lot of pressure down on this drill, and to drill slowly and let that screw bite and go through. Just the littlest bit of pressure. I'm going to go to the opposite side, kind of as you were to be tightening the lugs on your wheel, your car or truck. All right, so both of these adapters are just ever so slightly snug down onto the top of the tank. The main risk here, guys, again, I really want to emphasize this, is you do not want to strip these screws out. You strip them out, potential for leak right there. So you really got to go easy. It's cold out this morning. So what I found to be best is wait till it warms up a little bit later in the day and take a wrench, not your screw gun, and just snug these bolts down, going from this bolt to the opposite side and so forth, just like you're tightening the lugs down on your truck. So go nice and easy as you tighten that down. And if you're watertight testing your tank, maybe you can fill that water up above the seam here as you're tightening these things down. And if you have a little leak, don't be afraid, don't be worried. You can get that to stop just by snugging the bolts down ever so slightly more. That seems to work pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I have some 810 weld-on 2-part adhesive, and I'm going to pour it into this baggie, and I'm going to use that like a I don't know, a baker would put frosting on a cake. I'm going to just nip the corner of that bag and apply a bead to the inside edge of the riser there, and smear that around with this popsicle stick, and then just gently set that riser on there. So let's get that done, and we're almost ready for inspection here. Inspection's in about 2 hours, so we're looking really good. All right, the guys here are already making some progress on the foundation, and I just passed inspection here. I have the pipe all the way up the hill, the two-way clean out tee on it. Got the pipe capped down below. I have this coupling and female adapter dry fit at the moment. So if the grades change out here, the property owner can easily adjust that up or down to match their grades, but I gave it my best guess. Inspection went good, passed the water tightness test, which is really the majority of the test there. I did have to go through and snug these bolts down to get this thing sealed up, but that's what it looks like in test mode. The water is just 1 inch to 2 inches up into the riser. I have a pig balloon, as I call it, in the outlet side right there, and that just prevents the water from exiting the tank and allows me to fill that tank up to the desired elevation. There it is. Everything's looking good, no wet spots. The line coming out of the tank ran all the way down to the diversion valve area. So we got a double leach pit over here, and we have 2 Valterra gate valves. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell for this project. I got rain coming in about 4.5 hours. We're gonna be getting about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch tonight. And I'm gonna have to go into high-speed mode here and get this site backfilled. I got a couple straw bales to spread, some seed to spread, but there's quite a bit of effort still left here with the tank backfill. I have to backfill and lifts on the sides and over the top of the tank. That's gonna be the majority of the time. So I think it's probably gonna be getting dark on me by the time I finish this, but let's get after it. Key thing to remember, guys, is don't forget to take the pig balloon out. Because if you leave this little guy in there, I'm going to tell you from experience, the septic system doesn't work very good. So out she goes, and you can see the water level dropping really fast. And it's just screaming down the pipe. Well, yeah, so don't forget to pull those pig balloons, guys. We'll throw these lids on here real quick, and then we can get to backfilling. All right, and number 12 item on my list of key things when doing a septic tank replacement project, or really any project, is to keep record of that inspection. Keep your plans if you can, and any notes or any sign-off slips that the inspector gives you. Be sure to hang on to those, make a copy if you need to, and always good to have. Sometimes records are lost, and it's good to have a backup of your own, so you can prove that inspections were done and be able to get your system finalized if there was a delay there and all that. And number 13, it's not always required, but compaction of the remaining backfill material to the near surface grade can help a lot with, especially with a plastic tank, more so even than a fiberglass tank. When you compact that backfill, for this specific Roth Fralo tank, they want you to compact the backfill between the risers, and that's compacting that material into the ribs there on top of the tank. Helps with the structural integrity, and creating that kind of solid block of dirt is better suspended by the tank as opposed to what would essentially be liquid mud if the dirt was not compacted. That's going to have more of a downward force on top of the tank in a negative way. So there's that, and other than that, that's about it. That's my list. The 13 things that I felt was important for a tank replacement project, most specifically for this polyplastic septic tank. And now I want to go over the pros and cons. So the pros of a plastic tank versus a concrete tank. Concrete tanks are prone to deterioration, and depending on where you're at, and I don't know the exact science behind it, I'm going to start doing some more research, but concrete tanks can deteriorate pretty quickly. In fact, in a period of less than 10 years, 5 to 10 years, there could be substantial deterioration. And that to me is the best thing about a plastic tank, is that lack of deterioration. When installed correctly, I think it's probably the best tank that you can install. There are some downsides, but let's go over the other pro about a plastic tank, and this would apply for a fiberglass tank as well, is that they're obviously very lightweight, and you can get that tank into tight locations, maybe behind your house, in your backyard, wherever it might be, that a concrete tank delivery truck may not be able to access. So that's that. And then scheduling is easier. So if you're installing a septic tank at your house or your project site, wherever it might be, if you're going to use a concrete tank, most likely you're going to have pretty good coordination with the concrete tank delivery folks, and that can sometimes be a challenge. And the nice thing about having a fiberglass tank or a plastic tank is that you can get it delivered to your project site, stick it off to the side, and when you're ready, it's there and you can drop it in the hole. So that makes things a little bit easier. I'm probably going to miss a few other pros about plastic tanks and maybe even fiberglass tanks, but I'm going to transition to the cons, and I have 4 of them written down here. The tanks can be fragile, especially a fiberglass tank. You got somebody on a forklift moving that thing around your job site and they jab it, well, you can pop a hole in it. So these Roth Fralo plastic tanks are pretty robust, I must say, and I really prefer a plastic tank over a fiberglass tank just for that reason. If you have employees on a job site and they're dangling a tank around and somebody accidentally drops one and it's a fiberglass tank and you crack it and break it, I wouldn't give that to a customer, and you're out upwards of $4,000. So that's why I like plastic. And a downside is that these plastic and fiberglass tanks are usually not traffic rated, and vehicle drives over your riser, it's going to put that weight through the riser right down onto your plastic or fiberglass tank. If it's a fiberglass tank, it's going to crack like an egg. If it's a plastic tank, it could squish it and deform it. So that's a downside. It could be a tree falling, or a big tree limb can also do the same kind of damage. So, if you're going to put a plastic or fiberglass tank in, protect it. Make sure vehicles aren't going to drive there, and that there's not large looming trees that might fall over onto it. So, with a plastic or fiberglass tank, it can be serviced incorrectly. So if you have a fiberglass tank, for instance, I've seen this happen. A pumper might pump one compartment out completely, and sometimes those baffle walls in tanks like that can
you know, they're just basically epoxied into place. And if you only pump out one compartment, you can have an excess weight of sewage in the other compartment pushing against that baffle wall, and it can cause a blowout. And that would be a really bad thing. So the best procedure for pumping out a fiberglass or plastic tank is to incrementally pump one compartment, then the other, until the tank is empty. Avoid pumping just one compartment all the way down at one time. And so the last con of a plastic or fiberglass tank is the fact that they're very lightweight and can become quite buoyant in high groundwater conditions. If the tank is pumped out, let's say in the rainy season in the winter, there's high groundwater there, they can pop right up out of the ground. So if you're going to install one of those tanks, and this should have been probably one of my 13 items, is use anti-buoyancy measures for your tank if you're going to have to install it in a high groundwater area. But other than that, it can work and be a perfect, excellent, long-lasting tank.
All right, guys. This is it. This is where the double leach pits went in. That's a diversion valve box I just finished setting up. And this is what we're left with. Now, if you look at a before, you'll see this thing was just a jungle in here. Ivy, poison oak, concrete chunks, rock chunks, old wood, everything buried under all this stuff in here, fallen down cherry plum trees. And this is a perfect example of a project that that we do time and time again, where you get to a site location and it's overgrown, it's messy, and I don't even think the property owners realize it most of the time, but I can see what a property can turn into before it even happens. And I knew that we were going to make this place look awesome. So really happy how everything turned out, with the tank location down the hill a little bit further. Got the lids washed off. Everything's kind of raked and groomed out nicely. And it's looking beauteous. Really pleased with it. And last thing I have left to do is spread just a couple straw bales, some fertilizer, and some grass seed. A little sun and shade mix down there, but there it is, guys. Thanks for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have you guys along for the ride, and stay tuned. We'll catch you next time. Over and out.